Welcome to the new video on Junior Instructor Welder. In today's video, we will be discussing few questions in connection with the general welding process. Our first question is, the pinch effect in welding is a result of. The pinch effect in a welding is a result of options: electromagnetic force, electrostatic force, magnetic force, and electric force. The pinch effect is caused by electromagnetic force. The junction between weld face and the base metal is known as. The junction between weld face and the base metal. It's a very simple question. It is known as root of the weld. It is known as root of the weld. Junction between two workpiece and the weld face is known as. The junction between two workpiece and the weld face is known as throat. The junction between two workpiece and the weld face is known as throat. What's the difference between root and throat? So, root is the junction between weld face and the base metal. Throat is the junction between two workpiece and the weld face. The portion at which two workpieces are at the nearest distance is called. The portion at which the two workpieces are at the nearest distance. We are studying this question in connection with the weld. So, it is called the root. The portion of the weld that is melted by the heat of melting is called as. The portion of the weld that is melted by the heat of melting is known as puddle. The portion of the weld that is weld joint that is melted by the heat of melting is known as puddle. A small weld is used to temporarily hold two pieces is called. It's called tack welding. It's a temporary welding process normally carrying out during the fabrication fitting operation. For measuring the fitness of the work, we will be providing tack weld, and after the fit is okay, we will be carrying out the full welding operation. What is the function of torch? The torch is connection with the gas welding operation. It actually the mixes fuel and oxygen, mainly acetylene and oxygen is mixed in the torch. So the options are: it controls the fuel rate, it controls the oxygen rate, none of the above. So actually the function is it mixes the fuel and oxygen and controls the delivery. That is provided with the two valves for controlling the flow of oxygen and fuel. The depth up to which the filler material is mixed up with the base metal is known as. The depth up to which the filler material is mixed up with the base metal. That is, during the welding operation, the molten base metal and the filler material is mixed is known as penetration of the weld. It's known as penetration of the weld. Weld pass is associated with the movement of. Weld pass is associated with the movement of. So actually it is along the movement of torch. Okay. The raised portion from the parent metal in welding is known as. The raised portion from the parent metal in the welding. Normally after welding operation, we will be providing an extra layer of welding, that is called reinforcement. The raised portion from the parent metal in the welding is known as reinforcement. Which of the following process involves metallurgical fusion? Which of the following process involves metallurgical fusion? The options: forming, welding, forging, and extrusion. So in welding, we are carrying out the operation above recrystallization temperature. So the metallurgical fusion is the base metal and the filler material in the molten state. So we can expect the metallurgical fusion in welding operation. In welding, two parts are joined by bringing them into a temperature which is known as above the melting point. Normally the welding is carried out above the melting point of the base metal and filler rod. Normally the welding will be carried out above the melting point of the base metal and filler rod. There will be normally an option called a recrystallization temperature. Okay, actually the welding will be carried out above the melting point of the base metal and filler rod. In welding, the strength of the joint piece is. In welding, the strength of the joint piece is. Normally, the strength of the welded joint will be equal to or greater than the parent metal. Normally, the strength of the joint portion will be equal to or greater than the parent metal. Which of the following is a type of welder joint? T-joint, lap joint, corner joint, all are the types of welder joints. So T-joint, lap joint and corner joints are the different types of welder joint. The oil substance are removed from the interface by using which of the following organic solvents? For removing oil substance, we will be using acetone and carbon tetrachloride. For removing oil substance, we will be using acetone and carbon tetrachloride. Okay. Which of the following does not require flux to eliminate the oxides present in them? So which of the following does not require flux to eliminate the oxides present in some? Options: mild steel, copper, aluminium and magnesium. So while for the mild steel, we do not require flux to eliminate the oxides present in them. Heavier oxide films are removed by, so there will be oxide films of the metal. The heavier oxide films are removed by emery papers. Heavier oxide films are removed by emery papers. Okay. Options are basic flux, organic solvent, neutral flux. We will be using emery paper for removing the heavier oxide films. Okay. So we have to rub with the emery paper. In which of the following welding process no filler material is added? In which of the following welding process no filler material is added? So, autogenous, homogeneous, heterogeneous, none of the above. The option is autogenous. The welding process in which no filler material is added is known as autogenous welding process. Which of the following is a type of autogenous welding? Which of the following is a type of autogenous welding? That means no filler material is used. In arc welding, we will be using the filler material. In gas welding, we will be using the filler material. In brazing, we will be using the filler material. So in resistance welding, we will not be using the filler material. So it is an example of autogenous welding. In which of the following joining process the filler material is used is same as the parent metal? In which of the following joining process the filler material is same as the parent metal? So we have autogenous, homogeneous, heterogeneous and none of them. Autogenous means we will not be using any filler material. Homogeneous means we will be using the same filler material as the parent metal. In homogeneous, we will be using the same filler material as the parent metal. Okay, so the correct answer is homogeneous operation. In which of the following joining process the filler material is used different as the parent metal? So options are autogenous, homogeneous and heterogeneous. Autogenous, no filler material. Homogeneous, same filler material as parent metal. Heterogeneous, we will be using the different filler material compared to the parent metal. Which of the following is a type of homogeneous welding? Which of the following is a type of homogeneous welding? Gas welding, solid phase welding, brazing and resistance. Normally the gas welding we will be using the same filler material as the base metal, so it will be considered as a homogeneous welding. Okay, so the following is a heterogeneous welding. Normally in soldering operation we will be using different filler material compared with the gas welding, so soldering can be considered as a heterogeneous welding operation. When two insoluble materials such as iron and silver are joined, which of the following joining process is used? When two insoluble materials such as iron and silver are joined, which of the following joining process is used? Okay, so we have to choose the heterogeneous joining material. We will be using the filler material other than the parent metal. So we will be using the heterogeneous welding operation. For joining two insoluble materials such as iron and silver, which of the following filler material is used? So we will be using a different filler material compared to the parent metal. So we will be using the tin as the filler material for joining iron and silver. If a worker is suffered from electric shock, he should be. It's a question from the safety aspects of welding. So option A, given an alcoholic drink. Option B, given a cold drink. Option C, made him work. Option C, kept warm and covered. After getting electric shock, the operator or the supervisor should be kept warm and covered after getting electric shock. Which of the following is a temporary joint? We have temporary joint, semi-permanent joint and permanent joint. Okay. Temporary joint is anytime we can remove that joint, that is called a temporary joint. Semi-permanent joint means By applying some amount of heat, or we can remove that joint. And there are permanent joints also, like welding operation. Okay. Soldering, riveting, welded joint, and press fit joints. Soldering and welded joint can be gotten as a permanent joint. Riveted is a semi-permanent joint. Fit or press fit are treated as a temporary joint. Which type of fire extinguisher is used in a welding shop? Which type of fire extinguisher is used in a welding shop? Mainly there are 4 different types of fire, A, B, C, D, and in which we will be using carbon dioxide type fire extinguisher. So that will be used for carbon dioxide type fire extinguisher in welding shop. Okay. In the arc utilized in electric arc welding is, so normally you will be stepping down the voltage and increasing the current for a welding operation. So we will be using a low voltage high current discharge will be used for a welding operation. Which of the following is a type of transformer used in arc welding operation? So as mentioned, we will be using a step down transformer as we require low voltage and high current for the welding operation. The welding machine which is used to convert AC welding supply to DC welding supply. So AC welding supply is converted to DC welding supply with the help of a rectifier. The inverter will be converting DC supply to AC supply. Okay. The rectifier will be converting AC welding supply into DC supply. In DC welding, heat distribution is possible between the electrode and the base metal due to the change of polarity. The distribution of heat is, in DC welding, the heat distribution is possible between the electrode and the base metal due to the change of polarity. The distribution of heat, there is a ratio for the distribution of heat. There will be 2/3 of the heat will be towards the positive side and 1/3 of the heat towards the negative side. 2/3 of the heat towards the positive side and 1/3 of the heat towards the negative side. The size of the welding machines is determined by, normally we are using welding machine to step down the voltage and supply the high current. So the output amperage will define the size of the welding machine. The output amperage will define the size of the welding machine. The position in which it is easiest to weld. We are mainly have 6 different position for welding. That is called 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, 6G. You may heard about 6G welder. That's his experience and qualified for welding in all 6 positions, in which the best and effective position is a flat position, an easy position, that is called a flat position. The electrode size referred to the, normally the electrode size will be referred to the diameter of the wire. The length of the wire may be varying, so diameter of the wire will be specified by the electrode size. The electrode size will be specified by the diameter of the wire. Okay. One of the functions of electrode coating. The electrodes are coated with the flux. Its function is to stabilize the arc. It's one of its function. The increase the welding current. It cannot be done by the arc. The current will be passing through the electrode. To prevent the rusting, that can be considered. Control the arc temperature. Arc temperature cannot be controlled. So if we have 2 options, we can select the prevent rusting also. But rusting of the electrode, so we can the cannot prevent the rusting of the welded region. So it can prevent the rusting of the electrode. So the best option is to stabilize the arc is the main function of the electrode coating. Okay. The electrodes are manufactured in 2 standard lengths, namely, normally the electrodes are available in 2 different lengths, that is 350 mm and 450 mm. The electrodes are available in 2 different lengths, that is called 350 mm and 450 mm. The correct colors for oxygen and acetylene hose. The correct colors for oxygen and acetylene: black for oxygen and maroon for acetylene. For hose and cylinder also, the black color for oxygen cylinder and maroon color for the acetylene cylinder. In acetylene cylinder, the acetylene dissolved in acetylene cylinder, the acetylene is dissolved in acetone, and we will be getting the acetylene gas from the acetone. The function of a central hole in the tip of a cutting blow pipe is. The function of a central hole in the tip of a cutting blow pipe is. So the center hole will be providing the oxygen for cutting. the center hole will be providing the oxygen for cutting. The options are supply acetylene for preheating, supply oxygen for preheating. The central hole will be providing oxygen for cutting. The cast iron contain two elements which make it difficult to cut by gas cutting. Which are these elements? The cast iron blocks or cast iron sheets cannot be cut using a gas cutting operation. The elements which prevent the gas cutting is silicon and graphite. Silicon and graphite. This is which will be preventing the gas cutting operation. Which fuel is used for cutting deep underwater? For underwater deep cutting, we will be using hydrogen as a fuel. So we will be using hydrogen as a fuel. If L is the length of the inner core of flame and tip to if L is the length of the inner cone of the flame, the tip to metal distance should be. If L is the length of the inner cone, the cone has length, then the tip to the metal distance, tip means the tip of the torch to the metal distance, should be L plus 2m. You should give a clearance of 2 mm from the inner core. The correct flame for preheating before cutting is, for preheating we will be using neutral flame. So for preheating we will be using neutral flame. While gas cutting, the nozzle should be, while gas cutting operation, we have to keep the nozzle should be at least 5 mm away from the work, because there is a chance of molten metal will be sticking on the torch and it may lead to backfire and flashback. If blowpipe is moved to and fro frequently while cutting, the curve will. If blowpipe is moved to and fro frequently while cutting, the curve will be more. The curve will be more. In gas cutting, if too little cutting oxygen is supplied, in gas cutting, the too little oxygen is supplied, the metal will fail to cut properly. For excess amount of which oxygen should be provided while cutting operation, after heating we are providing excess oxygen for carrying out the cutting operation. Top edge is melted round and the cut face is not smooth in gas cutting. This is due to the question, the top edge is melted round and the cut face is not smooth in gas cutting. This is due to the tip being held too high, because we have to keep a minimum distance of 5 mm. If we are increasing the distance, so there may be a chance of irregular cutting, not the surface, on the surface. So the options are extremely slow cutting speed, insufficient acetylene pressure, the tip being too high, and the fourth option, too much cutting oxygen pressure. The correct answer is the tip being too high, so the surface cannot be smooth. In a gas cut plate, the cut shows the groove and sand has deep drag lines. This is due to, in gas cut plate, the cut shows groove sand and has deep drag lines. This is due to too close to the cut surface. If the cutting nozzle is very close to the cut surface, there is a chance of explosion, that is flashback and a backfire also. Also there is a groove sands like on the cut surface. In a gas cut pipe, the cut is high quality, although there is some surface roughness caused by the vertical drag line. This is due to, in a gas cut plate, the cut is high quality, although there is some surface roughness caused by the vertical drag line. This is maybe due to low cutting speed. That is, if we are not following a minimum cutting speed, we will be cutting, the cutting operation is carried out on the surface more than 1 or 2 times, so it will cause a vertical drag lines on the surface. So that is a too slow cutting speed is the reason for vertical drag lines. The size of the cutting nozzle used for oxy-acetylene cutting process depends mainly on, the nozzle will be selected based on the thickness of the metal to be welded or cut. Which of the following is a type of not fillet weld? Which of the following is not a fillet weld? Lap joint, T-joint, corner joint, butt joints. The lap joint, T-joint, corner joints, all are the examples of a fillet joint, but butt joint is not a fillet weld. Butt joint is not a fillet weld. Double V and W welds are used for a plate thickness above 15 mm. For single V, we can use up to 15 mm. Double V and W are used for a plate thickness of more than 15 mm. Which material is not used for marking consumable electrode? Which material is not for making non-consumable electrode? Which material is not used for making non-consumable electrodes? We will be using tungsten as a non-consumable electrode, carbon as a non-consumable electrode, graphite also used as a non-consumable electrode. Sodium is not used as a non-consumable electrode. Which of the following is an example of plastic welding? Which of the following is an example of plastic welding? So, in thermit welding, gas welding, arc welding, the operation is carried out in a molten state. In forge welding, the welding is done in a plastic state. So, it is called a plastic welding. Which of the following is not a type of arc welding? Which of the following is not a type of arc welding? Submerged arc welding, plasma arc welding, electroslag arc welding. All are arc welding example. Air acetylene, or it's a gas welding operation. Air acetylene is a gas welding operation. Which of the following is an example of fusion welding? Which of the following example of fusion welding? Forge welding, resistance welding, thermit welding with pressure, these are not an example of fusion welding. So these are arc welding is an example of fusion welding. Which of the following welding process is used for welding of sheet metal in automobile and aircraft industry? Which of the following welding process used for welding sheet metals in automobile and aircraft industry? The mainly in automobile industry we will be using resistance type welding. In aircraft industry, automobile industry will be using resistance type welding. Okay. Which of the following process heat is carried by blacksmith fires? Very easy question. Forging operation will be carried out with the help of a blacksmith fire. So forge welding will be carried out with the help of a blacksmith fire. Heat created by the chemical reaction. Normally the thermit welding will be using two chemicals for creating the heat. It's a portable welding operation. So thermit welding, the heat is created by a chemical. In resistance welding, two electrodes are made up of. Normally the resistance welding electrodes are made up of copper. It's a very important question. It's a repeating question. The electric welding resistance, the electrodes for the resistance welding is made up of copper. Acetylene can be prepared by the chemical reaction between. So when we mix water to the calcium carbide, it will produce acetylene gas. These are experiments done by the school students in their science exhibition. That's an example of flame. Okay. Flame from water. That's experiment is called flame from water. Which flame is suitable for cutting operation? Oxidizing flame is it's best suited for cutting. We will be providing extra amount of oxygen for the cutting operation. Which flame is suitable for welding steel? For steel, we will be using carburizing flame. For welding steel, we will be using carburizing flame. Which of the following is not true for gas welding? Which of the following is not true for gas welding? It is suitable for thin sheet. Yes, gas welding is suitable for thin sheet. There are safety problems in storing and handling this gas. That's correct. There are safety problems in storing and handling this gas. It is slower than arc welding. Yes, it is slower than arc welding. Heat affected zone and distortion are less compared to arc welding. No, in gas welding also heat effect zone and distortions are same or more compared to the arc welding. So that's all for the welding basic questions. We will be back with another class on the another day. Thank you.